Okay, hello, everyone. Hey, welcome to day 9 of 11 days of love stories. I'm so excited to be here at Amalgam Comics and Coffee House, located at 2578 Frankfurt Avenue, right here in the great city of Philadelphia. I am Joss Duncan Ashe. I'm the founder, executive producer, and publisher with Love Now Media. The last 9 days have been amazing. We have told stories in so many ways, and we've helped community members to tell their own stories as well. When we were thinking about our theme this year, the politics of play, we were thinking about ways to help people to ignite joy through play. And I could not think of a better partner than the East Coast Black Age of Comics Convention. Yay. And Yumy Odom.
Thank you.
Of course. We've had the pleasure of working together on a number of events. For those of you who know me, I am an Afrofuturist, and I've been doing Afrofuturistic stories and all kinds of stuff for about a decade, and Yumy has had me on some panels, and so learning more about his work, I was thinking I would love to have him present to our audience. So we are here to do that today. Before we dive into the wonderful workshop he has in store for us, I'd just like to start off with a bit of conversation about Black comics. So, Yumy, first I'd just like to ask for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Well, my name is Yumy Odom, spelled Y-U-M-Y-O-D-O-M. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, the center of the universe. But I live in Philadelphia for the past 34 years. I moved here in 1988 to go attend school and ended up staying here. I did my master's thesis on blacks in comics. It was the first one done in the US. And the focus was really on independent black comics. And quick segue, on the chair behind Sister Joss, all Negro comics. Philadelphia is really pivotal and central in black comics. That's the first independent black comic in the US. 1947, Orrin Evans and his brother George. I had the pleasure of talking to his daughter. I think she's since passed, but he always talked about not being able to do a second issue because of the typical issues in the US, systemic racism. That's according to him, before they used that term. And his daughter confirmed it, that he could not get his second printout because the then Timely Comics that became Marvel Comics, they kind of addressed the publishing companies and said not to give them the pulp paper to make their books. So he said that, and then his daughter confirmed it around 2018 or 19 or something with me, which I post often on Facebook. So these issues run through every single thing. But Philadelphia, after 1947, the next time you see independent comics is Brother Reggie Byers, who was there on Sunday. 1985, Jam Quacky, I didn't bring my little copy we did on it. Jam Quacky, he had also, what's the other one? That's the Hip Hop Duck. He did Shuriken, which was like a ninja, a female ninja. Just a whole host of books. And also Kids of the King, a Christian comic book, and lives right in West Philly.
Wow.
And after him, the Sims brothers from Brother Man. That's the most popular one, 1990. So you go from 1947 to 1985 to 1990, all right here in Philadelphia. So when I discovered that, I changed my 5 master's theses that I had done to make it the Blacks in Comics, and that was like 1993.
Wow, that is amazing. I didn't know that about Philadelphia. So Philadelphia really is like a growing place for the thriving of Black comics.
Right.
So I'm interested in learning, what is it about Black comics? I mean, there are comics everywhere. There are comic books, there are cosplay conferences all over. There are different kinds of characters. What makes Black comics a unique set of comics, and what are some of the distinct elements that make a comic quote unquote Black?
Well, part of what that is our comics tend to have a mission. It goes the whole gamut from people who are reacting to not seeing themselves, or maybe seeing negative images, or people who just have a creativity and they want to make a comic book. So early on, the 1990s is like the age of black comics. You had Brother Man, we had Captain Africa, right in New Jersey, across the bridge. And most of those books were made to address the absence of black people that they wanted to see in comic books. You know, most people had the step and fetches, they had the sidekicks. And what we do at ECBACC is we don't use black versions of white matters. What that means is most of us want to make original characters as opposed to carbon copies. So all of our folks in Philadelphia, that's what they did. This book, HTD, How to Draw, that's ECBACC's vice president's classic book. No other book like it, How to Draw African Superheroes. So people come from a whole different perspectives. And some of the stuff up here, actually. If you've been fortunate enough to see Brother Mashindo's work, this is a classic. These are heroes from the 1990s up to around 2004 or 6, I think it was. So he had all the ones that were currently out, including my character here, our flagship character. So this right here is a classic. This is the superhero montage. If you go online and look at black superheroes, this is the one you'll see the most, the best artwork. And what makes it distinct, like Brother Akinshi and other people doing the work, they don't draw carbon copy characters in terms of how they look. Each character has a separate face.
Can we pass this
Oh,
around?
yeah. You will not see a face that looks like the other faces out of 100 characters. Mashindo draws from the African mind. So Kuumba and Brother Akeem, when I have an idea for a character, I can write 5 things down, and they draw what I see in my head. Part of making the good characters is you have to have people who come from the same kind of thought processes. We're making original characters. So these are mine here. This is my character Razans that Brother Mashindo made for me.
Can you pass it around?
Oh, sure, they can all be passed around, yeah. Another character, and these are all unique. And my characters are all based on history and mythology, like combined. So this character is Lady Raya Blackmoon, right? Anyone know who Tituba is? Tituba, Tituba, 1692, Massachusetts. Nobody?
No. Can you educate us, please?
Well, you've all heard of the Salem witch trials?
Yes.
Right. So Tituba is the African woman who introduced these young girls to African mythology and herbology and religion. It's in the history books. Go look it up.
Tituba, how is that spelled?
Tituba.
Tituba.
Right.
Okay. And where was she from?
She's from, they're in Massachusetts, but she's from the Bahamas originally, according to the books.
Okay.
But
I think you meant in Africa, John, like where was she from in Africa?
no, she was from here.
Okay.
She was born here, but she came, right, that was her name.
Okay.
Right.
So Tituba was a black woman from the Bahamas who taught women who were executed during the Salem witch trials
Right.
how African mythology. She taught them African mythology.
Right.
Can someone look that up? I mean, let's make this interactive. Can anyone Google that? Tituba, Tituba, and Salem witch trials, and let's see what we come up with for that.
And the irony is this. She was first arrested, but she was not hanged, but the others were. And then she disappeared. So here's where my story comes into play.
Yes, let's pass it around.
This is her daughter.
That is Tituba's daughter?
Right. That's
Okay.
in my mythology.
Ah,
in the
okay.
Yumy verse, This is Tituba's daughter.
Did you all hear that word? In the Yumy verse, that is the Yumy-verse. I love that.
But also, back to your question, what makes our books unique? In all the early comic books, 1990s, they always had a glossary or history in the back of the comic book. All of our books are about teaching lessons. So you never have art for art's sake. Its art has to have a purpose. The early books all had a glossary in the back. Either a map of Africa, map of the U.S. with some discussion on it, different words that were created. None of us made books that were just to have the book made.
And that is distinctly different from other comics?
Exactly.
Okay.
Although in the comic books, you can learn a whole lot of words. I did. I was an A student because of comic books.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about little Yumy. Maybe your name wasn't Yumy when you were little. We don't know. It was?
My name.
That's awesome. Okay.
Name me Yumy.
Okay. Well,
As a sidebar, while this is all linked to that, my name means priest of the cat cults.
Oh.
So wherever I go, I can find a cat. That's when I didn't know it then. I had to look at it myself. But I said, why do these cats always follow me around? And I just said, my father named me Yumy.
So not Batman, but Catman. Okay. That's great.
But I have a long name, but yeah, that's part of my name, right?
So let's talk about what drew you to comics. And you said comics saved your life. Did I hear you say that? Oh, what did you say? They did what?
They helped me.
They helped you?
Now, my mother brought my first comics in 1975. I was in the hospital. And this was one of my first comic books, Fantastic Four, written by Tony Isabella, who was who's the Black Lightning creator. Met him, of course, at ECBACC.
Before you go, we're all about the storytelling here, and you're jumping around. I want to get into the heart of this story. Did you say you were at the hospital?
Yeah, this is.
So let's talk about this.
I got this injury playing tag with my sisters and my cousin. I tried to be slick and jump over a fence and got my arm caught in the fence. Blah blah blah. Went to the hospital for about a week or so. My mother brought me that book, this book, Daredevil and the Hulk versus the Silver Surfer. I read them in the bed. When I got out, had some interest, but not a whole lot. When I was in the 5th grade, I think I was. And then a friend of mine brought me this book, X-Men. Now, guess what drew me to the X-Men? Who? The X-Men, not the Avengers. Look at this cover. Why might I like this cover? Who? Storm. Exactly.
Storm.
Like a lot of people, but this is what I saw in Storm, right? I thought that her hair was raffia cloth. You know what raffia is?
Yes.
The straw
they
cloth?
wear it on an
Right.
African skirt.
So I thought she had a tiara with raffia cloth on her hair. So it drew me to this character, like an actual African character in a comic book, which I had not seen before. In this Avengers book, the Panther's in it, but I didn't know he was so-called black. He was just in the book.
He was just called the Panther.
That's Black Panther.
Oh.
But it didn't mean he was black.
Okay, he just was in black. Okay.
So once I got to read more, I started liking comic books. So my first purchase actually was this book of my own. My mother got those for me. I got this for me.
So when you were there in the hospital with this injury because you were trying to be slick, flipped over a fence, got your arm caught on the fence, and you were in pain, maybe, figuring out how you would heal, and you were presented with this material. Do you think the comics, the stories, the characters helped you to tap into anything related to your wellness or your healing?
That maybe, but before that, I liked mythology.
Okay.
I'd watch all of the Hercules TV shows with Steve Reeves. And I also liked mythology from reading it. I've been reading since I was like 5 years old. So all that stuff added up to come into these comic books. This is what I was imagining. And for those who know that young people have imaginations, I used to play with hammers and screwdrivers as comic book characters.
Oh.
Have you done it before? Anybody here? Play with stuff that's not what it is? So this would be my character, this phone here. This is another character. And I would just imagine my own stories. And then when I got comic books, what I used to do was cut out pieces from comic books and make my own stories. So if there was a character, like what's that Avengers cover that's in here? The Avengers 124? That one. For instance, in that comic book, the Scarlet Witch is not in the story. She's on the sidebar. But I redid the cover and I put her on the cover, which I still have. So I would make up my own stories. If you know the Fantastic Four, when Reed and Sue got married, the original cover had all these characters on it. But some people on the cover, they didn't have in the book. So I would cut out snippets from elsewhere and put them in the book. Because I had to make more stuff.
That is so fascinating. So I'm interested. Let's talk a little bit about the workshop, and we can get a sense of who everyone else in the room is, because I think because this is an intimate workshop, we might have an opportunity to hear from some other folks. So for the workshop, will you cover how to make your own hero?
Right there. That's my new book.
Okay. All right.
Create a superhero that goes in tandem with Brother Akinshi's How to Draw African Superheroes. Okay, so we won't get into that part until you start the workshop. But what I'm interested in is how everyone else came to be interested in either comics, Black comics, or storytelling. So you can just speak out. I don't know if this cord is really long enough. Yeah, let me not make a mess. But let's just have you speak out.
About comics, I was 73. When I was in grade school, I never understood Dick and Jane. I just, inspired. You know, it was just, I don't know, it just didn't sound right. And it didn't sound black or nothing that from my family or nothing that we did. It was like Dick and Jane and this big yellow cookie. You know, so it was like unrealistic for me.
So tell us your name again.
Osaze.
So Osaze says at 73, he just couldn't get into Dick and Jane and the yellow cookie. Hi, how you doing? And the yellow cookie. So that led you to comics?
That led me to not like comics, culture related.
Gotcha. Thank you. Osaze. Okay. Osaze. Okay. Great. Thank you. Anyone else? We have Sister Alfia in the room, who is a cosplayer. She is our living statue. So can you tell us about how you came to comics, storytelling, and also the specific type of cosplay that you do as a living statue? You want to come up here? Can you come up here and talk about it? Just so that we have this on the mic, right?
Thank you. So good to be here. Thank you. Well, with me, I'm sort of like a Brother Yumy, that I've always had a fascination with Egyptology, mythology, storytelling, and how the different characters are interwoven and what they have to do with us. So that led me to become an avid reader. And along with that, I ended up picking up a master's degree, a theological degree. And with that degree, of course, you read a lot about religion, and the first portions of religion is mythology, or what would be considered to be mythology. So it's just something that picks up in life. And eventually, of course, I met Brother Yumy because I used to teach passive classes for him. And then when did I take your class, your workshop on comics? Was that a few years ago?
I don't have a clue.
Yeah, so with his class, I really began thinking about, how do you do this? How do you develop a character? what are the things that a superhero would do? Like I learned in Brother Yumy's class that most people would say that if they were to develop a superhero, it would be someone who could fly, see through walls, have super strength, and become invisible. So I started to kick that around and say, well, if I were to develop a character, what would be special about my character outside of those commonalities? What is their favorite color? When were they born? How old are they? How young are they? Are they the oldest? Are they the youngest? What? So it was his class that got me to thinking about stuff like that, and then I began to develop my own character, and it also helped me with my my living statue work.
So can you talk about your character? Like, what do you do?
Oh, okay. Thank you. As a living statue is a person who dresses up like a statue and stands there and waits for people to give them money, basically, is what I do. It's a wonderful thing to do with your time. My living statues are based on historical people, historical characters, and a character that I created by the name of Starry Night. Right, thank you. Starry Night, her whole name is Starry Night the Dog Star, and she's from Sirius B, if anyone you're familiar with Sirius B, and her superpower is she's an empath. So when you see me in silver, posing as a living statue, that's who I am, Starry Night.
I love that.
Thank you.
I do want to just add, this is interesting. So as an empath, are you feeling what is happening around you when you're a statue?
Well, I would say I'm aware of what's happening around me. But in my narrative of her, my comic book, I go more into what she does. In Starry Night, her interest is restorative justice. So she rescues people who have been caught up in the justice system, specifically juvenile lifers, those who have disappeared through solitary confinement, nonviolent offenders, and things like that. That's what she does. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Althea.
Quick comment though, that's interesting because other side of these characters, they're also about justice. Goes back to our workshop at Griot Works. Superheroes and Social Justice, that all the early books, the 1990s up until 2015, everybody was about rescuing someone in terms of providing justice for someone. Not just for art's sake. And there was a mission behind having these comic books put out.
I have a question, and I think, because, again, we're an intimate audience, and you're about to start your workshop, I'm going to make this my last question. But I just wonder, as we think about characters and we think about the reason that we create characters, with you saying that most of these characters are about justice. Our work at Love Now Media is about justice. My previous company, Griot Works, we were about justice, whether it's narrative justice or social justice, economic justice, justice, right? What would a superhero character want if justice was achieved?
Well, here's the issue. Justice cannot be achieved. It's like violence. Violence is natural, which is why they can't resolve it, because they don't have a clue. They talk around it. Violence is natural. Ladybugs are violent, correct? Ladybugs eat aphids.
They eat what?
The little insects on the plants. They eat aphids. They eat other insects.
Okay.
All right? So part of what it is justice is evolving. Because imagine if everything was just right. You wouldn't be a real person because there'd be no struggle. The whole issue is, good segue right here. Heru, ancient Kemetic myth, are set aside on Heru, the mother, the father, and the son. That's where this tale begins. The term hero comes from Heru, Right? So it's not supposed to be achieved because humans are supposed to always strive towards something. Your body is a machine and your mind is infinite. Can you imagine a life of leisure? What a waste. Sitting around what? Eating popcorn, Netflix, and whatever people are talking about, right? No, you're supposed to struggle. So it's always about justice, like going toward what that might mean. You can have some respite and get justice, but there's always something else to go for.
Something else,
This
because
battle 10,000 years ago is still going on right now. So yeah.
so it's always about justice. There will always be a need for justice, is what you're saying. Okay, I appreciate that. That's awesome. So yes, Brother Yumy, I am going to let you take it away with the workshop, and I will be back whenever you give me the nod or.
Give me a time check.
Okay.
I got a whole hour left. We good.
All right, good. Okay, let's give it up for Yumy Odom.
Yeah, well, thank you all. I'm going to start by going through some of these images here. While we do that, I want you to think of a character of your own. The best characters come from yourself when you know who yourself is. Which is why those that are classic characters are done so well because the people who made them drew on their own images. And we're going to start from what you probably already know, Marvel and DC Comics, right? What's the first family of superheroes? Who are they? The first family of superheroes. It's the Fantastic Four, 1961, right? Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, drawing on their own influences to make characters. Although when you see Stan Lee's interviews, he says that he made those characters because he wanted to make money, but he had to still draw on himself to do that. And Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, as European American Jews, made their characters based on their mythology. And the same way with Superman, right? 1938, he's drawing on European Jewish attachments or connections to the Bible, which is why, what's Clark Kent's name when he's back home on Krypton?
Kal-El.
Kal-El. They're all based on Hebrew linguistics. In fact, Superman has a dreidel on his chest. He has a Yiddish dreidel, which is a spinning top with the S in it, right? They draw on their own culture. Our best characters come from ourselves. But you have to know who yourself is, right? Most people they've been embattled about their culture in the U.S. So often when they start making character, they do blackenization, they do black version of white matters, which means just carbon copying a character. You make black Batman, black Batgirl, those kind of things. They can work if you want to see those characters, but really you want to make your own character that comes from your center, right? Then there can be no complaints. We can look at Brother Man over here. Dawood Anyabwile and his brothers created this character. Big City Comics. They really are in Philadelphia. If you've seen the book, it's Philadelphia, right? But it's called Big City. So this book, I think they might have had 8 or 9 issues. One of the greatest comics ever. Can be reread every day and be different every day, right? Great art, because they came from their center. And he tells the story of how he got to this point, is that his father asked him to draw his mother. And he came back with Susan Richards, the Invisible Girl, or woman now. You follow me? His father asked his son to draw his mother, his wife, the father's wife, and he drew a white woman, right? Similar issue with me and my character. Where is Razanj? This character is drawn from quote-unquote Greek mythology, which actually is like world mythology. Guess who he's related to in mythology? You know your history of mythology?
Hercules, Apollo.
Well, but who is he related to? Based on how he looks.
Can you pass it around? Medusa.
Thank you. Who said that? Right. This is the thrice millennial great grandson of Medusa. Now, I use that because before I thought about this, I saw locks as living hair. You follow me?
I was thinking of Apollo because
The outfit? Oh, yeah. I'm saying the hair. So in Greek mythology, these things already exist, right? Who's Perseus? Perseus is
the son of Zeus, so he's a demigod.
right. He's a Greek or an Argive. He slays Medusa, who, according to the lore, is a priestess of Isis, or Aset, or priestess of Athena, and a black one at that. Yeah. Norma Lord Goodrich has a book on how these characters were also black, and you can see that because her hair would have been not snakes but locks. But Perseus actually slays her in the myth in Ethiopia. He flies to Ethiopia on his horse Pegasus and runs in. What does he see in Ethiopia? What's happening? He's looking at the sacrifice of the princess Andromeda, who in the book it says is an Ethiopian. So Perseus, the Argive of the Greek, meets Andromeda, the Ethiopian. They marry and mate and produce the mother of Hercules, Alcmene. So, as I always say, how does Kevin Sorbo get to play Hercules? You follow me? So in the myth itself, it tells you who's who and what's what. A Greek and African produce a child who's the mother of Hercules, who's still based on Heru, this character 10,000 years prior. You follow me? So all of this is connected. So what we're calling Greek mythology is really international or world mythology. Everybody's in there, right? So our ideas come from the entire planet. But the more you know of yourself, the better your character is going to be. Any quick questions, comments? So we're going to make a character in about 2 minutes. Questions, comments? All right. Yep.
What if you are not fluent in like knowledge of Greek mythology? Is it possible to create a character without it being rooted in Greek mythology?
Yes. There's a whole world. There's the Yoruba, there's the Akan, there's the Kemetic, which I draw on here in most of my characters, right? There's a whole world. You just have to read. Anyone look up Tituba in here?
Look up what?
Tituba. Tituba. Get back to, because I'm connecting the mythology with the history. So you can make up your own world and just make up 1,000 words. I've made up 50 words in comic books that people use right now. Yumy is one of them. The Yumy verse is my own ideas about superheroing, right? So in that universe, there's a thing called dystechnia. Dystechnia. What do you think that is? What's dystechnia? Well, dys is a reference to what as a prefix? What's dys mean? Something that's not good, right? So what's technia? What does it sound like? Technology. So dystechnia is the overuse of technology that dehumanizes people. But I made that up like 20 years ago. But we see it right now. People on their phones crossing the street. You found it?
Yes.
Read it aloud.
Okay, Tituba was an enslaved girl, and this is common information according to, of course, Wikipedia, but you can always dig deeper. Who was the first to be accused of practicing witchcraft during the 1692 Salem witch trial. She was born in 1674. She died sometimes after 1693. And basically, this is where it starts with. There's also something in the Smithsonian, magazine, Unraveling the Mysteries of Tituba. And It's on the History Channel, The Mysterious Enslaved Woman Who Sparked Salem's Witch Hunt. If you want to look up Tituba in the History Channel, she's there also. So it's definitely worth your while.
So you can use the history and myth because it doesn't say what happened to her. It says she disappeared. But that was into that. So that I pick up on that when I'm in my reading to make her my character's mother. You follow me? So you can find a character in the history and the mythology, or right now, real life. This back to Brother Dawood's work. This is based on contemporary. This is a lawyer who's streetwise in Philadelphia that fights crime at night when he's off of work. What a great story.
That's my.
And then I go to the original one, All Negro Comics. This is the precursor to the Black Panther. This is Lion Man. Same theme. This is 1947. People objected to his attire because this is 1947. Think about this. He just has on some drawers, basically. But that's how it was thought of. And then this character here, who was like his sidekick, was like comic relief. So some people didn't like the same kind of stereotypes going on in the book. But he also had black fairies, the folks that just now talking about, and they always existed in the mythology. If you can read Norse myth, they have a whole black land called Svartalheim, where they make gold, the goldsmiths. Sound familiar? Right? It's already in the mythology, right? And he had a detective story here in Harlem. So he had a whole classic outfit of characters. So from 1947, you get to like 1956, and they went from Lion Man to, not Encanto, there was a black prince, I can't think of his name, before the Black Panther. But it was the same theme, a mountain of ore in West Africa that someone was protecting. Right, so people have some of the same ideas, or sometimes they use other ideas to make their own characters, which is okay, if you give credit. So I would never say I created Heru, because I didn't. Already existed. I just used the character in my own stories. But those I did make. So you can connect contemporary life, historical things, and or mythology, and there's a whole world of mythology. It's just Chinese mythology. Japanese, right? Everybody has their own mythology. You can use those mythologies to create a character. Now, here's how you make some of the best characters. You have to start from the base. For those of us who don't draw, I start from writing an idea. For those who draw, start from the art and then they build inward. I start from the writing and build outward. So, in this book, for our workshop, you have to start from either the power of the character or the type of character. Now, there are at least 50 different kinds of characters you can make. Can you name a character type? There's a human, and then there's what else? Superhuman. But what kind? What kind? There's a human being. Well, that's a power. That's a power. Think about the type of character. There's humans, there are mutants, there are mutates, there are aliens. You follow me? There are demigods, there are gods. You follow me? And like 45 other different kinds of characters. So you want to find out what is the base for your character. So let's use those few I just mentioned. Which one would you pick? Human, well, what is a human? Basically, what's a human?
A human is an earthling, a person that was born on this planet under
Okay.
a certain physiology and anatomy, whose parents were born on this planet.
So we're just saying a human being is a Homo sapien from the Earth, planet Earth.
Born on
Right. So what's a mutant?
mutation of the human.
Say it again?
A mutation of the human.
Well, it's a human born with powers that the parent didn't have. Right, as a mutant, right? So what's a mutate? And we'll name some from comic books. So what's a mutate? We'll do 5 of these. What's a mutate?
A mutate? How do you spell that?
M-U-T-A-T-E. There's a
That's
human.
different from a mutant. They gain the power. They gain the mutation after they're born.
Right. Could be from. It could be from radiation. It could be from anything. But the mutant's born with the power. The mutate gets the power. All right. So what's an alien
A living
or extraterrestrial?
who isn't born on, born on this planet, or
That's all it is.
yeah,
From another planet.
Right.
from another planet.
Right. So that's 4.
Okay.
What else is there? There's like 45 of these.
You said
At
God,
least.
and you said a God.
Well, you can say demigod. What's a demigod?
Half.
Half demon and half God.
Well, that's it is, right, but a child of God with a human being. And when we say God, it's the small g God, which just means it's an extra dimensional being. It's not like the great God, the one God. It's just little g God. You follow me? So a demigod is a character who has a parent who's a deity and one who's a human. So you have 5 types already.
So, like, are the Orisha demigods?
Well, the actual Orisha are actually components of the God. But if I didn't bring his stuff. Brother Jibamole Anderson has a book called The Horsemen, where he focuses on the Yoruba pantheon. Great book. So they're personified as deities, right? Small g O-D-S. That's from The Horsemen. You have 5 types already. So now, what about powers? What kind of powers can you have?
Telepathy.
Telepathy, and what is that?
Being able to, like, read minds.
So it's psionic, based on your mind. You can read minds and/or what? Read them and/or give who?
Project thought.
Exactly, project thoughts. Okay, that's 1 power. Let's get 4 more.
Telekinesis.
Telekinesis, what is that?
Can move objects with your mind, with your thoughts.
Also psionic, right? You can move objects with your thoughts. What else?
When you say psionic, what do you mean?
It just means your brain. Psionics. Psionics are just any kind of mental abilities. It could be telepathy, telekinesis. It could be image projection. Give me 3 more.
Move through walls.
What is that called?
Ship shakers.
We'll get to that one next. Keep that in mind. Keep that next.
I forgot.
Going through a wall is called what? And this is also how this helps your vocabulary
Yes.
with reading. One of our main things at ECBACC was using Read for Fun to improve the literacy skills here. What are you saying?
Transmutation.
Keep that one next. That's not it. To go through the wall means that your body is intangible.
Intangible. See, I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking something else. So intangibility is a power?
Yeah. It means you can walk through walls or walk through something. Or you cannot be touched.
Okay.
Or captured.
Right, because you'll be you cannot be touched. Right? So you could stand here and be intangible, but you cannot be touched. You mentioned one in your discussion here about starlight. Starlight?
Starry night.
Starry night. You mentioned invisibility.
Yes.
So what is that? What is it to everybody? What is invisibility? It means you can't be seen, but earlier in comic books, they had confused that with intangibility. They had characters who could not be seen, but they be walking through walls. No. Because you can't be seen, your body's still solid. It's just invisible. You can't walk through a wall with just being invisible.
Yeah, that's like the Invisible Man. He cannot be seen, but he can
Right.
walk through.
He can't walk through. Right, right, right.
Yeah, he can't.
You can't walk through the walls.
Is that translucent?
Translucent is just clear. This is why comics are so important for young people and old people, to learn some new words. Translucent means just literally light passes through. It doesn't mean you're not even invisible. You're just translucent. You're clear, but I can still see you. You follow me? It's like seeing with a glass in here. Is there glass in here?
We get it.
Right, you got it right. It's a glass. The glass is translucent. I can still see the glass. All right? So part of what happens is it helps people to develop how to use his abilities. Right? And you mentioned what? Shape shifting, which is called what? Another word for shape shifting.
Something that has to do with the word morph.
A metamorph
Metamorphosis.
or a transmorph. It just means you change shape. Morph is shape. Right? Even with that, they had to make up how to deal with that, because in the early days, it just meant that if I were a metamorph, I could become a giant dinosaur. How? Where's the dinosaurs coming from? So if you're metamorphing into what your same size and weight is. If you overthink it. But they still say a metamorph can turn into a gorilla. No. I'm only, this is me. 5'8", 190 pounds. I can't become a 300-pound dinosaur or whatever.
Or the Hulk.
Or the Hulk. That's different. The Hulk is a what? The Hulk is a what? We just did. He's a mutate. So radiation explains everything. So he said he can become the Hulk because he was irradiated.
Gamma rays.
Right. So he can become 8 times his size and weight because of the radiation, which made the mutation that made him a mutate. Right? So, but comics did a whole lot of science. And you mentioned
Transmutation.
transmutation. What is that? What does it mean to transmute something?
You can change your mutant abilities.
You can't change yourself. Transmute is you change other things. I'm going to transmute this camera into a machine gun. That's transmutation. Right? It doesn't work on yourself. Because if you turn yourself into a machine gun, how do you get back? Unless you get knocked out, and then whatever, you come back to yourself. But those are things that you have to think about in your story.
What's the superpower that's rooted in emotions, like that uses?
Someone mentioned it already. Who mentioned that? You did that. What's that power called?
Which power?
Rooted in emotions.
Empathy?
Right. You're an empath. Empath means you can feel, but you can also send your feelings to other people like the telepath. But the telepath is mental. The empath is emotional. Right? Some people are empathic naturally. They make people feel naturally. That's a regular human emotion, except in the superhero world, you just exaggerate it. And you make it 10,000 times more than just what you're thinking of.
I think that's a really good point that you bring up, because I think when we talk about empaths, we don't talk about their ability to make other people feel. We usually focus on how they are sensitive
right,
to everybody else's
right.
feelings, but the power, like I'm completely rethinking it as a superpower now,
Right.
because they make other people, or can make other people feel.
That's how you would develop your character. Right? If you don't draw, that's how you would start. I don't draw. I doodle, and I give my things to other people who can draw. I'm just not one of them. How you doing? Good to see you. All right. So right, you just take that ability and you develop what that is. Is that all 5 of them? I'm missing something? That was 5 powers?
I think so.
5 powers out of at least 55 powers. All right? And there are more. Quick questions, comments?
So the Wonder Twins was
Who?
so the Wonder Twin powers wasn't really, was over-exaggerated.
Well,
They came from little tiny people that's.
But the Wonder Twins were what? They were
Were they mutants?
they were aliens. They're aliens, they're twin aliens. So when it's alien things, you can kind of
Give them extras.
yes, make believe other stuff. Right? But it had an idea that they were synced. But think about the Wonder Twins. What were their powers?
They could change.
They can change.
Into what?
Whatever they thought, whatever they said.
Nope. Well, water was easy to draw, so they kept saying, change into water every week. It's like boring, but there's a reason behind that. There's a reason behind that. What about the Wonder Twins? One always turned into something totemic. What's totemic? That was a totem. Who? Who? An animal. What did you say it was? Oh, totem. Yeah, but listen, you're on the right track. Why is it called a totem pole? Because it's animals on a pole. It's totems. The owl, the bear, the eagle. Right, it's a totem pole. A totem is just the animal spirit thing, right? So characters, you know Spider-Man? Spider-Man is totemic. He's based on a spider and not a Nazi. That's another story. Anyway. Spider-Man, like the Wasp and the rest, are based on 1950 sci-fi with radiation impacting humans who are bitten of whatever scratched by other creatures. All right?
From the science fiction, The Fly.
It's based like that.
Yeah.
But this is from all the early sci-fi from the 50s with radiation had giant creatures in them. So all of this is based on that in the comic books. You follow me? But back to the Wonder Twins and totemic powers, base animal-natured powers. So we got one. What's the other part? The Wonder Twins only do two things.
One was elemental.
Right. One turned into animals or totems, and one turned into the elements. And I saw that when I was like 5 years old. And I said, oh, so this person only turned into animals, and that one turned into like water. Was she always water? Zan and Jaina? Whatever, right. Always water in a bucket, but whatever. Every week. It's like boring, but they were trying at the time. Who is in terms of history of this, before we get to actual development, which character group is purely elemental? Outside of the Sectonauts. Well, that's a good one. That's a good one. But the one in terms of Marvel and or DC Comics, blue Marvel Comics, which ones are the elementals? I mentioned them earlier. The Fantastic. What did you say? The Fantastic Four. All right? So name the four characters.
Reed,
Mr. Fantastic.
Sue, Johnny, and Ben.
Right. Now, what are their elements? So Reed Richards is?
Elastic, so plastic.
So he is? Plastic is fake.
What? Plastic. Like elastic,
But what is he? Which element? Well, first of all, what are the elements? Maybe that's what problem. What are the elements? Earth, fire, air, and no. Water. Earth, fire, and water. What's the fifth element? What's quintessential? What's quintessential? What's the fifth element? Who? The quintessence is your mind, right? So, who's the earth in the Fantastic Four? The thing. Who's the air?
Suzu.
Because she's invisible, but she's a force. Who's the fire? And who's the water? Excuse me, that's my ride calling me back. Can we take a break real quick? Unless you're going to drive me home. We're going to do a quick wrap up and make a superhero. I'm going to pass this around, but this gives you some idea of the other elements of this. So this is from our workshop. I don't want to pre-divulge what Josh has talked about, but we might be doing this as a certificate course coming up at some point. But this is our workshop that runs from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. normally to certify, but also to produce a character. So here we have the type of character, and here are the powers that you use, and then a sample mock-up for those who don't draw, right? Quick and easy steps. You learn some new powers and words, and for those whose hands aren't greasy, I'll pass this around. Excuse me. So you see a lot of different powers on that we talked about, but that gives you a way to create an individual, unique character of your own. As I said in the beginning, the best characters start from yourself, when you're not outside of yourself. You don't want to make carbon copies. You can make an actual, unique character that nobody else has. Now, there's some standard stuff that most people use spandex for a reason. Why is spandex used and or unstable molecules? Why would they have those kind of costumes? It's for a logical reason. Why? Right. Right.
You can't find jeans.
Well, you could, but they might be ripped off with the speed. So you have a costume that literally is about protecting you as you move as a superhero. And a quick segue back to my other character. Where's my Raya Blackmoon? Oh yeah. I had someone complain about her, said that she was too sexual. But sexual. But this is our brother Machindo draws great character that look like people. But I explained to her, she said, why does she have to have this shape? Because imagine, right, if you had to fly and run and jump, you'd be in this shape too. So I'm saying this is not someone who's just walking around the house. This is someone battling crime and all kinds of things, so she's not sedentary. And these are, for me, these are flight suits. You follow me? So some things are based on logic. Like who? Like what?
Like the female woman, the reproductive system.
Like what does?
Okay.
You mean her shape?
Yeah, her shape looks like a vagina. This is the fallopian tubes.
That's interesting. But this is Brother
Safety on site.
So she can save a lot of things, right?
A superpower might give you creation.
I was going to say,
Right.
Well, not here. When I come out, I don't sell stuff, but I can. They're not really for sale. Therefore, when you take the class, you get one. But if you email me, I can send you some of the copies that's online. Right now, they're all proprietary.
Here, get that.
Who?
Small businesses here, get that.
I only have that one.
I'm talking about as far as emailing you and receiving.
Oh, you can sign. You sign up here? You outside?
Or we talking about certificate program like this?
Well, right. If you take that class, you'll get one of those.
Did you take that, brother?
Well, no one took it yet.
Oh.
This is one that, right, we have our own, but we want to combine it with Love Now Media to do their own workshop coming up. All right?
And that workshop is info level.
Right.
Because some of the youth that I send here, they might want to get into it.
Someone said me, we have a youth version and an adult version. An adult doesn't mean like sex, it means that adult. Grown-up people who might want to be involved in superhero creating. As opposed to, for the stars, we do elementary school through middle school, right? So a lot of word puzzles, games, and those kind of things that we use. But for this class, it would be mostly for adults or young people who are mature enough to be in a class with us. All right. All right, folks. 50 minutes left.
Okay.
It's consensus. What is your character? Human, mutant, mutate? What is the character? Alien? Demigod. We had 5 options. Well, the type of character.
Like where are they from?
Well, what are you? Are you a human? Are you a mutant? Are you a mutate, alien, or demigod?
Demigod.
Okay. Okay, so you're a demigod. We all agree? That's it?
Oh, we make this up together.
Right. So, you spoke. We're going to go to demigod. Demigod. Now, what are you in terms of what you look like? That was an issue with us early on. When I used to do this class, we went to every Philadelphia library. I used to leave most of the times literally crying because our youth hated how they looked. Akinshi would do an art piece and he would draw the nose and the ears. And I always had a mirror with me. I just like crying in a mirror. I'd go to each child and say, look at how he draws the nose like your nose, or like your lips, or like your eyes. And they would never look at the mirror. I would cry after every single session. Because like, how do you not like to look at yourself? How is that possible? But it's real, right? So what does your character look like? We have a demigod. But demigod what? Is it African, Asian, European, amalgamated?
African American.
Well, what would they look like though? Would they look like
Statuesque.
statuesque? So this is a female character?
She could be female. It could be a female.
Okay, so we have a female character who's a demigod. And we're saying... So we're saying the character is going to be Africoid, black-like, black-looking, as we perceive blackness, right? Who?
Darker hue.
Darker hue, you can say.
Melanated.
That's been an issue too because we had the classes. That's part of how you make a character. You want to identify with the character. So we had people saying so-and-so was fair-skinned. There's no such thing as that. If someone has fair skin, that means someone else has unfair skin. And when they say fair, they mean light. So if light is fair, dark is unfair. So that's trash, right? So you go by complexions. You can say, name a complexion, and that's how you deal with it, right? So we have an Africoid-looking character, demigod. Now, what's the power?
Matter bending.
You say what?
She picks people up and shakes them.
Now you said matter bending, but that's what you said. What was that power you had?
Transmutation?
Right, transmutation.
Oh, but teleportation and matter bending. Like you get more than one.
Sometimes that's not good because it's overdone, which is why people's favorite character is one that I've never liked. Superman, the worst character in my... I never liked that character.
He has it all.
Too many. It doesn't make any sense. If you have freezing breath, you can freeze all your villains right away. Jump into the bank, freeze them to death, hit them, the police come and pick them up. Where's the story, right? So you don't want to overdo it by having a character who was just so excessive like that. People liked it then because it was new. Initially, the character couldn't fly. He used to do what? He used to jump over buildings. He couldn't fly. Leap and sing, right, exactly. But then he began to fly. So they even had to redevelop the character itself. So you want to find a character that's believable, which is why Marvel Comics and our independent comic folks had the best characters, because they were relatable. They were like people. So you don't want to have like 8 or 9 different powers. You want to have a power that you can focus on. You can have 2, but they can't be 2 disparate powers. So So transmutation, teleportation, unless the character uses technology to teleport.
Does she use technology?
Then you could add, right, my power bracelet.
Does she have powers?
Right. You can add that to it, but you don't want the character itself, even as a demigod, to be able to do everything.
So what about Black Lightning? He gets
That's our friend.
super strength, right?
Not really.
But what else does he?
He has lightning powers,
Lightning power.
but because he has resilience to lightning, he's also kind of strong,
Yeah, speed healing.
right?
But he gets affected by using his powers, doesn't he? If he
He
overuses
loses,
it.
yeah.
If he loses his power.
Or, yeah. Yeah,
So-
it's like a battery.
Yeah, it's like a battery.
Okay.
Has to recharge.
So if we talk about the sister that's RPQ, can she get power from the sun?
That's an interesting one. You can use that as for nighttime, yes.
So does
That maybe she has a reserve of lightning powers from the daytime when the sun is down. She can still use her powers, if that's the case. But this character has no lightning. This power is transmutation with a teleportation bracelet as a demigod.
What do you call when a character can run real fast?
I tell people, never use that. There's enough black runners. But you but you can do whatever power you want. When I'm saying which one?
She would be a good one. The sister that was in the Olympics that had to be disqualified.
Oh, Shikari.
Yeah.
Well, that's why people use them because, thank you. Because Shikari.
Right.
That's a name right there.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I did read that.
So in the longer class, I'll explain why. There's like 5 powers you don't use because they're overused. Who?
The boys.
I'm watching that now and rewatching it. This season, and he's the black one, or whatever. But the story is actually based on what we're talking about. It's all stereotypical. The European guy who was the best guy, had all the powers. He's their mock Superman. So the boys make up the Justice League. Has a whole host of those characters like that. They're all mockeries of, or copies of, but they're also telling another story, right? But so with us, we say don't use super speed. There's enough black runners. You don't want to see no more super speed, no more people who can move a planet, but also mate with a human woman. Impossible. You follow me? No super speed, no lightning either. All the black characters had lightning across the board. Marvel and DC all had lightning characters. Find something else. And there's 45 other things that you could use. You follow me? So if we do the workshop, we won't be creating anything anyone else has ever done.
Okay.
And we're about to wrap up, miss. Yeah, well, welcome. We have a character, made a character, a demigod or demigoddess, Africoid, looking like an African. Powers are, well, get some physicality, 6 feet tall, and other stuff.
a bracelet?
Oh, and she has a teleportation bracelet. But her main power is transmutation. Transmutation, right. That was her main power. What happened?
Oh, that's my character?
No, that's everybody's character.
Yes, dimension jumper.
That's a whole nother power. Well, you can use that. That can still be the technology that she uses. She can teleport, also jump dimensions, maybe stargates. But it's up to you as the actual creator. But it has to make sense. It can't be just willy-nilly. Initially, people, hey, my former student, how are you?
I feel good now. See,
But I gotta leave. I gotta ride outside. Anyway.
So what's her goal?
Exactly.
Could you give us some?
Is she gonna just be around because she's around, or what's her actual mission? Is it about justice, or what's happening?
How about self-esteem?
That's kind of built into that. It's built in. When you have characters who self-develop, that's part of what their mission is too. It can be like, my mission is to show you, no, you just be it. It's like making the characters. When you start from yourself, those are the best characters. When you like yourself, your characters are also going to be good.
Because she has the ability to, when she's in a classroom with children, give them visions of power or...
Now that's going back to our power over here.
But isn't her transmutation?
Empathetic.
Transmutation is changing things to something else.
No, I mean, is that the power that we gave her? Was it
Right, that's what you gave her, right.
So if her power is transmutation, why do we give her that power? What was the vision that we had for why her superpower?
I said transmutation because it's limited to what is presented in front of you. That creates a level of difficulty for solving an issue. Because super strength, super speed are just so base that they can solve any issue. Transmutation actually has to make you think about your surroundings and how you're going to solve that issue.
So self-esteem would work there?
Well, self-esteem is part of the story. It's interwoven in the story. You don't want to hammer people over the head. Early stories were like that. The 1990s had a superhero, had on a red, black, green outfit, running around Brooklyn, saving stuff, but with a lesson. You don't want to abuse people with the lesson. You want to just be that thing. That's the lesson for the person who's the onlooker.
Well, maybe since her superpower is transmutation, maybe she is here to fight gentrification or to preserve the historical the historical structures of African culture.
Well, comics are always political. So what she could do is at night go around and transmute all these buildings that are hideous and make them something else, right?
Or she can do reparations too.
Right.
Turn paper into money.
Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talks about sexual transmutation. Two people coming together creates such an energy that you can manifest so basic because all of your concentration should be during that activity at its peak. That's another workshop. Sexuality
workshop.
But I was thinking if you do self-esteem and then sexual and self-confidence, what would that produce?
A baby.
A trans. DNA. Like you can transform DNA by think of epigenetics.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not just hereditary. Your outside environment can change your DNA. Like children of smokers are 50% more likely, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So if you have this power and you can transmute everything around you, I mean, your offspring, your legacy can build villages. Wakanda over here. Pyramids on the left. You know what I mean? Like gardens of my mind. Right? I'm birthing Octavia Butler.
And with that thought process and the thought process of like the confidence thing, it sounds like she's descended from African heritage. She's the mother, almost level. It sounds like a Mother Earth situation. Where transmutation is meant to try to adjust things for the better. Now the oppositions are, like you said, I'm gonna go around and equip people with places to make home, but people are not gonna like that you're doing that. So our opposition are people that are trying to keep you from doing what you're trying to do to save people. The confidence is trying to stay optimistic. Focus optimistic on doing it, because every time I fix a building, they come and tear it down because they know I did it.
Okay.
So when I disappear, people stop trying to fix what I'm fixing and they leave it alone.
Okay.
And
Wow, we with that. transmutate during doing the, doing the do. Maybe it can be so intense that it creates vortexes where people can travel, and correct things.
Wow.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Like, complete obedience.
Well, that's a good way to wrap up because. One minute. I got you.
5 powers that are overused for black people. I have 3 of them. Lightning, super speed, super strength.
With people in general.
Say what?
Just in general, that's just too many. Inordinate super strength, fast running, lightning. I'm forgetting one. I'm forgetting 2 of them. There are 2 other ones that are just overused, and I can't think of them right now. That's not a. Flying is another one. That's another overused one.
So it's a 6.
But that would be among the 5 of those. That's super strength. I'm missing one now. Because the flight you can work out if you show how they fly.
Yeah, if it's like in control of their own.
There's at least 5 ways to fly. Quick aside, name at least 5 ways to fly. You can fly telekinetically, levitation. You can fly because you're extraterrestrial. You can fly with technology. You can fly if you have a totem, another animal like a dragon. And you can fly with something that is material, a talisman. All right? That's 5 ways to fly. That would take it away from you just jumping up and flying and saying you can fly.
Yeah.
Like Black Lightning.
Black Lightning can't fly.
He has to use electricity. It's electromagnetic.
Yeah.
Like static shock.
Yeah.
Right? Which actually is based on science. So all of these, you have to figure out how your character's going to be developed. And then you make a better character by introducing things that make sense. It's not just a cartoon. Right? But the comic book itself is like a real character that you have to envision. You make the character something. You give the character personality, not just the power, because the power is like secondary.
Yeah.
The character is the actual person in the character. Right?
Your powers aren't you, they're an accessory to you.
Right. Right.
I know you want to those.
And the writing's outside.
I'd be happy to be your ride if that would give us an extra 15 minutes.
He's probably out there.
Okay.
That means he drove from Rob anyway, but we got it.
So I just want to ask as we wrap up, if you wouldn't mind giving us a summary of what you went over, just so that the people who came in late could get that. And then if you could just finish, I guess, telling us how can all of this help with like healing our people, healing our journey.
What's the first part? Well, the wrap-up is basically...
Kinds of characters,
Right.
kinds of powers.
All of that is that your character needs to start from you. That means from your research and whatever. It could be religion, it could be mythology, it could be anything, but you bring something to your character. Don't just see one that you like and then carbon copy a character, right? That's the main piece. It starts from you, how you develop. And your second one was what?
Can you go over, we went over kinds of characters, kinds of powers, and it was something else.
How it helps us heal as a society. But like you're saying, how it,
What's the purpose?
Right, that's all connected to that.
Okay.
It's still about the issue of justice. Doing right or doing good, how you define that. And the characters play that out in their episodes, in their comic books, right? All those things are interconnected. It's about superheroing. As I said initially, it comes from the character of Heru, the son of Aset and Asar, right? Osiris, Isis, and Horus, for those who might not know the original names. Right? And that's all about the 10,000-year ongoing battle against Isfet, or evil, that never ends. Because like violence, they're both natural. If you know your storyline, you can look at evil as not as something bad, but as something necessary that you have to fight against. But most folks just give up, they get tired. Right? But it's ongoing. This is 10,000 years later, and we're still addressing some of the same human issues. Because most folks don't ignore that there's a natural part of us that you might not like. Blah, blah, blah. Anything else?
That's it for me. Maybe if anybody else has one or two quick questions.
Maybe at the
Email
workshop.
address.
Well, Sister Josh has all of that. They signed in at the
We're
front.
gonna do another workshop with Yumy, maybe in July or in
Right.
August as part
It
of
would
our
have to be
Black
after
Stories.
July 9th.
Okay.
We'll be all right.
All right, so if all of you have signed up, if you didn't sign up, if you could just check in with Lily. We'll make sure that you get the information. Can we give Yumy Odom a round of applause?